Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Lynette. Today we're going to talk about looks are deceiving. And what made me think about this is I was sitting in my living room in a regular type chair, and my neighbor decided to come over and visit. So we're talking, and I'm thinking that I look normal. And she said to me, "It must be really frustrating for you." And she kind of pointed around to my living room and at me. And I realized she was talking about that I can't do so many of the small things that I want to do. Now, granted, when I need something done and I ask someone to do something, I have to be patient because sometimes it gets done immediately and sometimes it gets done a month later. But when she said that, my normal response would be, yes, but I've never felt happier. And I didn't have it in me to say that. I didn't have the energy to get into that whole thing with her. So later that evening, I started thinking about what she said. And it made me realize, to the average person, yes, I look like I'm going through a lot. But it is true, I have never felt better. And I really had to ask myself this question. If I knew that I was going to end up in a wheelchair, but yet feel better and happier and have more peace than I've ever had before, but yet be in a wheelchair, would I take it? And the answer that I gave to myself was yes. I wouldn't trade what I've gone through for the happiness and the peace that I feel inside right now. If somebody would have asked me a long time ago, or if somebody would have told me that you're going to end up in a wheelchair, I would have been devastated. And if they said, yes, but you're going to feel happier inside, you're going to be more at peace, so would you take it? Before this all happened, I would have said no. Because as I've shared with you before, there are things happening internally that personally I never knew existed. We've talked about higher levels, living in different levels, knowing a peace, knowing a happiness that you didn't even know existed. And that's kind of what's happening. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm so ready to be done with the physical part. And maybe it had to be severe to get my attention, to have me kind of slow down and look at things differently. One thing going through all this is it made me realize who my friends are, who they really, really are. Because I will admit, some people did back off. The ones that stepped closer and offered their assistance, I am forever grateful. And I realize those are the people that you want in your life. So if this showed me nothing else, it showed me, and I'm quoting Montel Williams, I heard him say this on his show once, it showed who cares about me, but also who I should care about. And it made me realize that you don't need a billion friends. If you have a few good ones, I mean really good ones, those people that are going to be with you regardless of what you're going through. And that is the delusion that social media does give. You feel like you have to have 1,000, 1,000,000 friends, which is ridiculous because I feel kind of like my life is tried and true. And I realize the real answer to all of this is having a few. And if you have more than a few, God bless you. That's wonderful. People that are there for you through thick and thin, even if you're going through a bad time, even if you can't keep up, regardless of what it is. The interesting thing of all of this is if there was two people side by side And one of them was dressed really nice, nice hair, nice clothes, smile on their face. And then there was somebody else in a wheelchair or had some other obvious outward problems. And you were to think, who's the happiest? You would automatically think the person that seems real together with the clothes of hair and in good physical shape. But from what I've learned through all this, that is not always the answer, because it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. And therefore, we can't judge and be deceived by looks, because it's the things that people go through that make them who they are. It brings you kind of full circle. I know there's a lot of people that go through different things, and there's different ways to handle it. You can have a good attitude and be open to learning the lessons that you need to learn. Or you can be angry and bitter and self-medicate to forget about what's going on. In fact, before my health started to decline, I think it was just starting actually, I knew someone who was going through a bad time. So I bought them this book. And by the way, I want to refer to you this book. It's called The Power of Now. And the author is Eckhart Tolle. The Power of Now, written by Eckhart Tolle. Anyway, I had never really thought about living in the present moment, but this book is so well written based on Eckhart's personal experiences. So I bought one for this person that I knew was going through a bad time. So when you go through something, a big change in your life, and it doesn't have to be physical, it doesn't have to be outwardly, because I know the internal part can be just as, if not more, painful. But you have a choice. You have a choice if you're going to make the most of it and learn from it, or if you're going to ignore it and just have a bad attitude and try to mask it. I think when we go through things, we all go through certain things for a reason. I can look back now and look at who I was and who I am now, everything I've learned. But that brings me to another point. You have to be very careful what you pray for, because we don't know what form we're going to get it. Like before I started to have a decline in my health, I was going on auditions in San Francisco, and I didn't want to appear nervous, so I prayed that I wouldn't have an ego. And then lo and behold, this happened to me, and I thought, boy, if this isn't clinching, nothing will. So I learned you've got to be really true to yourself, true to God when you pray for something. I learned you don't use psychology on God, because another time I wanted to be well so bad that I prayed, God, either heal me or take me. And of course I didn't think He would take me. And lo and behold, I ended up in the hospital with a 50% chance to live. So I learned again, you don't use psychology on God. But He knows our heart. He knows what we're asking and why we're asking. So you have to be really true to yourself and true to God and sincere in your heart, sincere in your prayer. But I honestly, sincerely never thought I would answer yes to the question that I asked myself the other night after my neighbor asked me that question, if this is all frustrating for me. And when I said to myself, would I trade how I feel right now for the physical condition I was in, but yet still have the same internal emotions? And I realized, no, I wouldn't. And I surprised myself when I said that. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to be healed. I really do. And I feel like it's time to be healed. But I realized, and I surprised myself because it was an honest answer from my heart, that no, I wouldn't trade it. Because, as I said, you can't judge someone by looking at what they look like externally. Because having peace of mind, being at a higher level, feeling happy is priceless. And what I've gone through personally, I wouldn't wish on anybody. So when I mentioned to you, learn your lessons, be open to learning your lessons. Don't make your lessons happen to you when you're kicking and screaming, resisting what you're supposed to be learning. And when you go through something, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, remember it's not the end of the world. You're just being redirected. You're learning. And when they say every cloud has a silver lining, the presents, gifts that you get when you're going through something are invaluable. However, you have to have the right attitude. You've got to be willing to accept what you're learning from a not so favorable experience. Because if you fall into a pity party or have a bad attitude or try to mask it in some way, then you're missing the opportunity to become the best version of who you are. I think we all get to a place where we're going up the ladder, we're becoming a better version of who we are. And it happens to all of us in different ways. So yes, we can go through things bitter and angry, or we can take it as the opportunity to learn to become better, to navigate things in your life, obstacles basically. It teaches you how to navigate obstacles. And I'm not saying or suggesting that it doesn't come with frustrations, because it does. And I myself have had my own share of meltdowns, trust me, because sometimes I feel like it's almost more than I can handle. However, without even realizing it, when I look back on the attitude, just the way I'm thinking, and the way I used to think about things are like two different people. I may look the same on the outside. I may go by the same name, but the changes that it's made in me, I can even notice. And I think it's been noticeable to those around me because I had a friend ask me, she said, "You've really changed, haven't you?" And it's not an obnoxious change, it's just a subtle change. But more than being subtle, it's a version of peace and happiness internally that I don't think I would have learned if this hadn't happened. So the two things that I'm getting at here is, for one, don't judge someone because they look like they have it all together, what we consider together, because that doesn't mean anything. It's what we can't see that really makes a person, that really makes or breaks the person in terms of being a truly happy, contented, peaceful individual. And the other thing is, when we are going through something, whether it be a physical limitation, a heartache, a devastation, it can be anything. Do your best to look at it as an opportunity to learn, to be better, to grow, to bring you closer to the person that you were meant to be. And again, I want to say, when we see a situation, we're not to judge because it doesn't mean anything. If you saw the old version of me standing next to this version of me, You would have certainly thought the old version had it all together. But I'm here to tell you I may not look as together outwardly, but inwardly, it doesn't even come close. And the inward part is what you have to live with. It's what makes you you, regardless of what you're going through. What I'm saying, if you can, try not to look at a situation screaming and kicking, but look at it as an opportunity to learn, a fork in the road, so to speak. With that being said, I want to thank you for listening. God bless you. Enjoy your week, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.